We begin with a frantic sword fight in a cage between a girl with glasses and pigtails and a fully grown man, while the spectators go wild over their match like it's the Super Bowl game. As their battle gets more intense, white specks start floating around our two fighters, charging their swords to shake it to the max. The girl attacks the man with such passion that as the cheers and screams of testosterone-fueled men in the audience get louder, the smoke dissipates to show that the man is surrounded by an aura of chains while the girl bites the dust like it's a Queen song. A pool of blood flows out of the girl's body, confirming that her life subscription has ended, while her glasses lay broken on the floor like me after getting rejected by my high school crush. As her soul leaves her body, the last words that she utters are an apology to someone named Ayato. Now we finally get some context that an unprecedented disaster known as the Inversia drastically changed the world a century ago by reducing the power of existing nations. Now that most of the world leaders were as unemployed as me, a new conglomerate called the Integrated Empire Foundation was established to lead this new world where people had a different sense of morality. But Inversia wasn't just a pain in the back, it also gave the world new potential in the form of a brand new species of humans called the Genus Stella, who have exceptional physical abilities. These young men and women participate in festas, a fierce battle sport that decides everyone's social status, most of which happens at Rika, the Academy City on Water, aka Asterisk. One of them is Ayato, who sees a handkerchief flying around and follows it. Interestingly, it very conveniently leads him to the window on the third floor of a building as he uses his Ninja Turtle moves to swing off a tree branch and sit on the windowsill to witness a sight that instantly makes him hit puberty then and there. A pink-haired 10T2 baddie has her butt out as she's trying to dress up and immediately panics on seeing Ayato. As he tries to cover up the hidden sword in his pants and explains that he only came here to return her handkerchief, she strictly commands him to turn around while she covers herself after being caught in 4K. He's still sweating like a firefighter when she demands to see the handkerchief and instantly switches up to being grateful towards him for returning this handkerchief that's apparently very close to her heart. Noticing that she's wearing the same school uniform as him, Ayato is about to drag the conversation like a reality star, activating her power to be surrounded by white specks because she wants to yeet him for seeing her in a compromising position earlier. Recognizing her as a Strega, Ayato jumps out of her window and dodges her fire attack, only for her to come after him to the ground, low-key respecting him for being able to survive this deadly attack. While she stays hell-bent on cooking him like a well-done steak for breaking into the girl's dorm, he clarifies that it's his first day at this school, which is why the whole thing is a huge misunderstanding. Giving him the benefit of doubt because this girl probably thrives on drama, she introduces herself as Julies of the Seidukan Academy and challenges Ayato to a duel, making all the students crowded around them record the whole thing on their devices, probably because they're thirsty for some likes. On TikTok, finding the whole thing completely absurd, Ayato claims that he doesn't even have a sword to entertain Julius's madness when someone from the crowd throws him a sword because no one wants to miss out on the biggest feud of the semester. As Julius informs him of the rule that whoever school badge gets destroyed first will be the one to lose, Ayato accepts the duel and activates his second-hand sword to dodge Julius's attacks. Everyone is surprised to see that their princess's attacks haven't already roasted this newbie to a char now, and Ayato starts to earn some mad respect. When he finally retaliates with a twin dragon move which could have put this woman in her place, he chickens out due to chivalry and tackles her to dodge a light arrow that was aimed at her. Finding this so-called innocent guy on top of her, Julius turns red like the Fenty Beauty blush as he's unintentionally clutching onto her school badge that's coincidentally placed on one of her goodie bags. Just when they're about to land on the front page of TMZ, Claudia Enfield, who is the chief representative of the Red Lotus, aka the student council president of their school, shows up and declares the duel as invalid on the technicality that Ayato hasn't fulfilled his transfer formalities yet, which means that's officially not a student of Seidukan for now. Later on, Claudia jiggles her Lana Del Rey physique at Ayato to convince that he can talk to her informally since they're both first-year students and in the same grade. Trying to come off as edgy like the heroine of every coming-of-age movie, Claudia casually mentions that her super nice talking style is to make up for her black-hearted personality as she's super dark from inside. To prove her point, she does the most pick-me thing ever by lifting her shirt off and flashing him with her flat stomach with abs like Kendall Jenner. As Ayato freaks out because he's had enough share of his classmates' nudity for the day, she compliments his simplicity because she finds it adorable. Leading him to her office, Claudia begins Ayato's orientation by announcing that the only thing expected from his as a scholarship transfer student is to win. Then, she tells him about the leading academies at Asterisk, namely Garrardworth, Alicant, Jailong, La Wolf, Queenvale, and Sedokan, which are training schools for the best Genistella from all around the world. Every year, these schools fight for supremacy through contests called the Festas, where top Genistella from these schools face each other in this fancier version of a cockfight. However, Siandukan has been taking lots of L's lately, which is why they've shipped him all the way here as a charity case and their last hope of saving face in front of all the other academies at the Festas. Promising him everything he could ask for if he wins, Claudia learns that Ayato doesn't have so many desires, which makes her wonder why he came here in the first place, because all this fighting could put his life at risk too. Hit with the flashbacks of the chain's aura and the girl with glasses, Ayato confronts Claudia with the question of whether his sister Haruka also attended this school. In response, she shows him the record of a student that is as old and tattered as a divorcee, explaining that a girl named Haruka did attend school here 5 years ago but withdrew 6 months later for personal reasons. Other than that, Claudia has no info on her, as she apparently didn't participate in any festas or enter any named cults, which suggests that Claudia is capping. However, Claudia does point out that an extremely rare and powerful weapon called the Serve Arresta sword was used 5 years ago without any record of it being ever checked out. Nevertheless, she thinks that Haruka isn't at the Sedokan Academy right now, which makes Ayato change the topic as he expresses that he wants to pick out the Serve Arresta as his weapon of choice, because when has a younger brother even been able to surpass his older sister's shadow? After handing him a substitute sword to use until she can arrange the Ser Baresta, Claudia gives him a parting gift of a soft, warm hug because she casually hits on her classmates all the time. Before leaving, she admits to lying about his transfer formalities not being completed because she wanted to keep him all to herself instead of leaving him at the mercy of judgmental Julies. Later on, Ayato is introduced to his classmates in the most non-climactic way and is assigned to sit next to Julies, who thanks him after class for saving her life during their duel. While she still hasn't forgotten how he accidentally got handsy with her in front of the whole school and made her lose all her street cred, she accepts that she owes him a favor for saving her life. As she walks out in the most diva way possible, a friendly guy named Yabuki introduces himself to Ayato as they're about to be roomies. As they walk together, Ayato tries to get the dirt on Julies, who's apparently not just a daddy's princess but belongs to a monarch family from Europe, as well as being a Strega, who are an extremely rare type of Genistella. The reason why Yabuki is as knowledgeable as Dumbledore is because he is a member of the newspaper club, but even someone as nosy as him has no idea why Julies would leave behind a life of royalty to stay at such a competitive school. According to Yabuki, every time a student tried to know more about this knockoff Princess Diana, she tells them to mind their own business because she's big on the concept of boundaries. No wonder she doesn't like Ayato. The students who didn't like her Regina George attitude even challenged her to several duels, only to be defeated like a gamer who has his girlfriend disturbing him at every moment. Now that story time with Yabuki is over, Ayato thanks him for throwing the sword at him earlier this morning during his duel with Julies because he recognized his voice in an instant, conveying the point that he isn't as sneaky as he thought he was. Like a goody two-shoes, Ayato explains that he is very particular about returning loaned items to people. They've made it out of the school building when they see 3 huge gym bros screaming at Julies for challenging a newbie to a duel, while she makes it clear that she won't accept their duel again, considering the fact that she's been there, done that 3 times already. As Ayato and Yabuki hide in the bushes like 2 guys who have yet to come out, Yabuki tells Ayato that the lead jerk is Lester McPhail, a rank 9 student who's pretty strong despite being lower than Julius, who is rank 5. As Lester continues to mansplain, he grabs Julius's hand and causes her to drop her handkerchief. Awakening her powers, Julie puts him in his place for thinking that she battles for fun, insisting that she's here to accomplish a goal which she will fulfill after winning all the festas. As Ayato looks at her in wonder as if she is a Coldplay concert, he understands that he is witnessing the Petal Blaze Witch, aka the Witch of the Resplendent Flames, in all her glory right now. Met with a flashback again, Ayato remembers how Haruka had once told him that their father would be super salty at him for fighting some boys who were probably calling Haruka a bop. Turns out, Ayato's father forbade him from fighting as a kid because was seriously OP, which meant that he could not only hurt others but himself too. While all of this sounds like some skibbity brain rot to him, Haruka promises that he'll finally understand things better once he grows up and figures out how to use his power, which is why he's landed at Sedokan in the first place. When he pulls an Uno reverse on her and asks her about her purpose, she responds that she's supposed to protect him. Back to the present, we learn that Ayato had stepped in like a knight in shining armor to recuse the princess, literally, while Yabuki had recorded the whole thing like the pestering reporter that he is. As Lester backed off and walked away, Julie's kept up her nonchalant aura because she knows that Ayato would soon show his true colors and reveal that he isn't as innocent as Ken in the Barbie movie. Ignoring her tough love act, Ayato straightforwardly asks her why she fights in such a cutthroat school, and she honestly responds that she does it for money because she's as broke as me at the end of the month. She plans to start with the Phoenix Festas when Yabuki points out that it's a tag team, which means that she'll need a partner. But sadly, this princess has no girl group to support her, which is why she has no partner for her festas or otherwise. Despite being a single Pringle, she demands to have a partner who has at least page 1 level combat skills, meaning that she should be on the top 12 scoreboard of their school. As she lists many other impossible qualities of this partner at an unachievable standard, Yabuki gets a call from the newspaper club because his deadline is approaching and runs off on a side character quest no one really cares about. Once it's just the two of them, Ayato asks Julisse if she can show him the way to the boys' dorm, which we all know is code for a booty call, but she unexpectedly laughs at him for still not knowing his way around campus. Instead of feeling bullied by her laughter, Ayato actually feels like a horn dog, making her feel as awkward as me at college parties and pointing in the direction of the boys' dorm. But it looks like Ayato is ovulating at the moment, as he smoothly asks her to show him around the campus and the city sometime because this guy knows how to shoot his shot. Cashing in the favor she owes him, Ayato finally convinces her for a baby's day out after school. Showing up to class, Ayato shocks everyone by actually getting a decent response from Julisse instead of the hate speech she usually throws at others during every human interaction. But Ayato's attention is taken away when another one of his classmates finally lifts her head up from the desk as she's just woken up from her Sleeping Beauty slumber. Ayato immediately recognizes the girl as Saya, his childhood friend who had moved abroad 6 years ago. As Ayato catches up with her like a real housewife, she reveals that her dad, one of the gifted Genestella, has been smashing it with his career, which makes her wish sometimes that he'd slow down for a while. It is her dad's ambition that has landed her at this school in the first place, but she also has a secret desire that she intends to fulfill, which she definitely doesn't plan to disclose to Yabuki, who has started taking notes for his news already and loves playing the gossip girl of this school. Turns out that Saya is equally relatable and iconic, as she gets told off by their teacher for missing classes because apparently her bed holds her hostage. Ayato brings up the park with a lake where they used to play as kids when Julie shows up after secretly doing her 16-step skincare routine in the bathroom. As she's about to take Ayato away with him, she snaps at Saya for poking her cute little nose in their business, which makes Saya volunteer to show him around campus instead of Julisse. As the girls get into a catfight over who gets to show Ayato around their campus, Claudia shows up out of nowhere and holds Ayato's arm as if he is her husband-to-be. As she is basically rubbing herself on him, Ayato tells her to put some distance between them because he's not so big on PDA, while Claudia gets disappointed at his need for personal space. After getting a joint disapproval from both Julisse and Saya at the idea of her giving Ayato the tour, she gets down to business and hands him some documents. Signing these papers would mean that Ayato is showing up for the compatibility test tomorrow to see whether he can equip Serveresta. Detecting possible beef between Julisse and Claudia, Ayato asks if they're friends, only for Julisse to answer that they're only acquaintances who keep running into each other at the Vienna Opera House ball. Once Claudia is gone, both Julisse and Saya get jealous of her Sydney Sweeney body while they're both flat like Zendaya, which is why Ayato proposes the idea of the both of them giving him the tour together. As Julie shows Ayato all the useful spots around campus, Saya also learns about so many places she'd never discovered before, only to trigger Julisse even more for being a freeloader. When Ayato runs off to fetch some drinks for the girls, Saya interrogates Julisse and learns about her history with Ayato, refusing to believe that she can still walk straight after a duel with Ayato. Saya warns Julisse that she may be powerful, but she is no match to Ayato's strength, bruising Julisse's fragile ego so much that she decides to challenge Saya to a duel instead. But just as Julisse is about to make the official announcement of the challenge, the same light arrows that targeted her during her duel with Ayato come at her from nowhere. Barely dodging them, Julisse pulls herself together as she has been a master procrastinator instead of tracking down her hunter. She retaliates at the hooded guys, but they dodge it effortlessly when Saya literally drops a bomb on them through her grenade launcher, making them sing "I Believe I Can Flies" as they fall several feet away from the girls. The fight leaves the girls dripping wet as they have destroyed a fountain that has rained on them. That's when Ayato walks in on them and sees them looking like the two girls from that Keanu Reeves movie called Knock Knock, and turns his head away out of respect so that they can cover themselves up. While Julisse loses her marbles over this embarrassing moment, Saya sadly admits that she has been going full commando because she's underdeveloped, which is why she hasn't shopped at Victoria's Secret yet. The next day, Ayato gets an update from Claudia on what work has been done to catch Julisse's assailants, but discovers that they haven't been caught yet because the city's police force isn't allowed to intervene in the academy's matters, and also because Julisse acts like a moody teenager and refuses to cooperate with the investigation. When Claudia shows Ayato the other applicant for the Serveresta, he is too stunned to speak. Claudia mentions that their compatibility with the Or Deluxe weapon would be measured, and if it exceeds 80%, they would be allowed to check it out. Following the policy of Lester first, Lester holds the Serve Arresta, while Ayato thinks that his sister might have used the same weapon a few years back. As the sword's aura activates, Ayato gets a blast from the past because he recognizes the chain's aura from somewhere. Ayato returns to his senses and watches Lester completely suck at being compatible with the Serve Arresta sword. As Lester tries to impose himself on the sword like a disgusting man, he loses all aura points as even the sword rejects him, throwing him away like a used tissue paper. As the sword gets testy due to Lester's shenanigans, Ayato steps in like a Sigma and dodges the sword that is levitating in the air like Superman and attacks him several times. Switching from defense to offense mode within seconds, Ayato develops a macho personality and finally gets a hold of the uncontrollable sword, pushing it to the ground to nerf it. Turns out that his compatibility with Serve Arresta is 97%, which makes him a living legend like Elvis in the eyes of everyone present. As Claudia plays naughty nurse with him and bandages his injured hand, she requests him to give her some of his time tonight and invites him to her dorm. When he comes knocking, she is looks-maxing in the shower and comes out in a robe that does a shabby job of hiding her assets. As she makes him feel welcome at her room, Ayato realizes that this fancy accommodation is a perk of being a high-ranked student and that all page 1 students get private rooms straight out of a lifestyle magazine. While she admits to enjoying the hassle that comes with being student council president, she crosses her legs suggestively because she knows the correct way to a man's heart. As Ayato struggles to hide the monster in his pants, she shows him the list of students who enlisted in the Phoenix Festus but had to withdraw on account of injuries, which explains why Julius has been on someone's hit list too. Claudia adds that the Academy's disciplinary committee doubts Lester and his fat sidekick named Randy for foul play because they don't have any alibis for the time of the recent attack. Sadly, nothing can be done to control these mischief makers for now because there is not enough evidence against them. However, Julius is most likely their next target, which is why Claudia requests Ayato to stay by the princess's side for the time being as her personal bodyguard because he's the only one she can tolerate breathing the same air as her. Keeping up the mom of the group act, Claudia claims that she's concerned about Julius because she overlooks and protects the student body while also staying true to her personal goal like the rest of the students at this academy. Now that she's done talking business, she gets down to dirt business as she offers herself as the reward for the favor that Ayato is granting her by protecting Julius. Climbing on top of Ayato while practically suffocating him with her McMuffins, she offers him a happy meal but he runs away like a wimp. Looks like Ayato is going to have a really tough no-nut November, as the next morning he is greeted by Julius, who is dressed up really cute and proper for their day out in the city. He compliments her like a gentleman while she panics because she doesn't know how to take a compliment. She begins their tour by showing him the main stage, which is the largest platform in all of Asterisk and the venue for all Festa's finales. Other than that, Asterisk has 3 other large-scale stages, 7 mid-sized stages, and way too many stages. Like a true pacifist, Ayato comments that he wouldn't like living in a city where there are so many stages because duels happen there all the time. Agreeing with him, Julie stops at a fast food joint which is basically a knockoff of McDonald's and decides to have lunch there. As Ayato watches her make love to her burger, he questions if she is really a princess because of her hoodways. She explains that her friends from back home recommended this place to her, which surprises Ayato as he never thought that someone with Jughead Jones energy could also have a group of friends. Getting serious, Ayato brings up Claudia's point and persuades her to not be on her own all the time because it's unsafe for her, but she resists because she doesn't want to change her lifestyle because of some losers who think they're in Assassin's Creed. Just as she finishes delivering her speech about how she's a strong, independent woman, Lester creeps up on them as he has been eavesdropping like the FBI. Running like a broken record, he insists that Julius should duel him again so that he can finally satisfy his fragile male ego when Ayato takes a stand against him. Criticizing Lester for making a scene in public, especially when they all know Julius has been in danger lately, Ayato disses him like Kendrick and refuses to duel him unnecessarily. As Lester starts to tweak in anger, his sidekick calms him down by assuring him that everyone knows he's respectful enough to not sneak attacks on someone and fight them with honor instead through duels. After Lester and his gang finally leave, Ayato and Julie spend the rest of their day having fun and going out like an Instagram couple. They are passing by a park when they see a group of boys shouting at each other as if they are having an impromptu rap battle, and Julius tells Ayato that these students from the LeWolf Academy. Just as Ayato moves closer to see why they're all lagging, Julius gives Ayato the chat, where cooked signal because it's a common trick used by the LeWolf students to stage a fight to lure in their target and then surround them. As they shoot a light arrow at Julius, Ayato guesses that they were the assailants when Julius explains that they usually do these Suze tasks when someone is promising them G's. Planning to grill these hoodlums like BBQ on the 4th of July, she throws flames at them until they are all a pile of burnt trash, after which she picks one of them to ask about who called a hit on her. The guy with a mohawk doesn't look so gangster now as he explains that he didn't know the guy who paid them, except the guy was tall and burly and dressed in all black. Exactly my type. The Mohawk guy is still mumbling like an idiot when he spots the mystery man hiding behind some trees and points in his direction, causing Julius to chase him like a cop after a hood rat. Once she's in the woods, the guy keeps attacking her, and when Ayato runs towards her, they realize that it is actually 3 people who are dressed like ninjas and are out for their blood as they almost get to Ayato too. Once our ninja turtles have escaped, Julius looks at Ayato, whose clothes are shredded at this point, and even his sword has been destroyed in the process of dodging a light arrow. Before they go their separate ways, Julius tells Ayato to come to her room later on because these girls just can't meet guys in cafes like normal people. When Ayato pays her the nightly visit, the first thing she asks him to do is strip that down for her. As he panics at her sudden change in behavior, Julius realizes that she's coming across as really easy right now and clarifies that she called him here to fix his torn clothing. Understanding that Julius doesn't want to be indebted by him even further, Ayato hands her his overshirt, which she begins to sew like a grandma. He guesses that sewing is another skill that Julius learned from her friends back home and picks up a framed photograph that shows Julie as a kid with all her old friends. As if she wasn't giving major granny energy already, Julius starts narrating a childhood story Ayato didn't even ask for, as she tells him how she used to sneak out of the palace as a kid to explore the city. One day, she got lost in the slums and realized that she's not in Kansas anymore when a group of PDF files cornered her in a dark alley and all she could do was sob helplessly. She really thought she was done for when some girls intervened and saved her royal butt, befriending her for life. Those girls were from an orphanage in the slum and didn't even know at that time that Julius was actually a princess. But the nuns must have known because nothing gets past a nun. Even though the orphanage was funded by an organization established in Julius's late mother's name, it lost its funding over the years, which is why Julius is here in asterisk to earn enough money for the survival of her soul sisters with no parents. Ayato has also been thinking what we've been thinking, as he points out that she is literally a princess, which is why she shouldn't have to earn money but simply use her country's wealth to fund the orphanage. But Julius proves this peasant thought process wrong as she explains that she can't use the country's wealth as she pleases because her country is under a puppet regime of an integrated enterprise foundation which won't fund an orphanage unless it's profitable for them. Julius goes on to yap about how they are all used as circus animals to come to this city and battle each other for people's entertainment just so that the boomers can make all the money. But Julius is also here to pave her own path and get that millionaire lifestyle only so that she can ensure the survival of her orphanage buddies. Now that Ayato's shirt has been fixed and I've been bored to death, she gives him his shirt back while also explaining that her handkerchief means so much to her because her friends from the orphanage gave it to her a few years back on her birthday. All the girls took turns embroidering that handkerchief, but it means a lot to Julius, who always keeps the handkerchief with her. The next morning, Ayato steals a glance at Julie secretly reading a note which has supposedly asked her to come somewhere alone. She acts nonchalant in front of Ayato and later on gets out of class early as if she is going to meet her sneaky link. Disappointed that Julius is back to her old loner ways, Ayato rats her out to Claudia, unaware that snitches get stitches. Claudia and Yabuki guess that the letter was from the people who have been after Julius, which makes Ayato go deeper into his narcissistic disappointment about why she didn't come to him first about this matter. Getting him out of his Billie Eilish listener phase, Claudia assures him that Julius must have kept this a secret to protect Ayato, which proves how much she actually cares about him. This weirdly reminds him of how he and his sister had sworn to protect each other. Fueled by a desperate need for female validation, Ayato rushes out of the school to go after Julius and help her while Claudia hands him the Serve Arresta to officially start his journey of being a W guy. As he does a Naruto run towards Julius, he silently thanks her for showing him what he is supposed to do and solving his existential crisis. Julie shows up to an old construction site all alone, only to be showered by a huge rock of debris. She effortlessly protects herself from it and challenges her opponent to come out. The guy finally reveals himself to be a nobody loser named Silas Norman, who is one of Lester's less noticeable henchmen. Turns out that Julius was smart enough to guess her true enemy in the form of Silas, as she noticed a slip of tongue from him when he prevented Lester from acting out, giving away the fact that he was present during Julius's attack when she was about to duel Seiya. Now that she knows who the imposter among us is, she commends Ayato for cooking up Lester and creating a dramatic situation which gave away everyone's true intentions. Now that Silas has dropped the lore on how he is the bad guy after all who wants Julius to withdraw from the Phoenix, Julius draws her sword to activate her man-hater mode when Lester makes a surprise appearance. Not only has he seen Silas's true colors, but he's also been punked into showing up here as he was falsely told that Julius has accepted his duel and wants to fight him here. As Julius catches up Lester on how his supposed best friend has been selling out his own schoolfellows to do the dirty work of some other academy, Silas shamelessly announces that he plans to Who framed Roger Rabbit Lester for all of Julie's attacks and eventual death, which rage baits Lester into taking out his weapon. Within moments, he is surrounded by Silas's hooded men who strip off to show that they're actually puppets being controlled by Silas. Lester sends all of them flying off nevertheless in a single attack, but these guys are unstoppable like that Sia song and start shooting at Lester like they're at a high school in America. When Lester gets up again, Silas surrounds him and Julie's with 128 of his Terminator knockoffs. Lester gets buried under the pile of those puppets like a rugby player, while Julie's puts up a good fight only until a bullet hits one of her thick thighs. As she is slammed up against a wall in a way she definitely doesn't enjoy, Julie's plays detective and flexes that she has figured out that Silas is working for the Anicap Academy, as only they can the potential to mass produce such weapons to withstand the Genestella. Kicking her wounded thigh for funsies, Silas orders his DIY soldiers to finish off Julie's when Ayato shows up to save the day and fulfill his hero complex. Even though he's saved her pretty butt for a millionth time now, Julie still acts like a Karen and argues that she's capable enough to handle this on her own when we all know that she's capping. His reply is the cheesiest ever as he tells her that even though she's protecting those orphans, she needs someone to protect her too, which aligns with Ayato's newfound purpose of using his powers to be a good boy and protect his squad. Now that he's finally made her blush, he turns his attention to Silas, who releases all his soldiers on Ayato now. Putting his brand new Serve Arresta to good use, Ayato carries Julius in one arm and finishes all of Silas's army with the other within seconds, earning infinite aura points for life. But Silas is one of those guys who just don't know when to give up, which is why he regroups his army and goes all out on his next attack. Too bad that Ayato not only diges it but also connects the dots that Silas is using a chess visualization to control his G.I. Joes. After that, Ayato uses his Serve Arresta to play Fruit Ninja with Silas's army, making him bring forth a huge puppet that is as giant as my ego. As Ayato tears apart the giant puppet limb by limb in this boss fight, Silas starts getting his daily steps in because it is time for him to make an exit. With Silas flying away, riding on the back of one of his soldiers, Julie's finally decides to be useful and uses her powers to fly Ayato to catch up with Silas and slice his last soldier. As Silas comes falling down from the sky like my grades, he survives the fall because of being a Genestella, but he already has Claudia waiting for him with her weapons because she needs a boy toy to play with as well. Still levitating like that, Ayato and Julie's enjoy the glorious view of a beautiful sunset, looking into each other's eyes when something hits Ayato, making him scream because some invisible chains seem to wrap around him and suffocate him. After passing out, Ayato remembers the moment Haruka had sat him down one day when they were kids, apologized to him, and then unleashed the chain's aura on him, which made him feel trapped and suffocated as she was using her circular shackles to imprison his savage force that makes him so OP. After that, Haruka hugged him, told him she loved him before she said goodbye because she was apparently going off somewhere to protect him. When Ayato returns to consciousness from his trip down memory lane, Julie's is towering over him like a worried mom and assures him that Claudia has already sent help their way. Since Ayato doesn't even have the strength to get up or move, he lays still in Julie's lap, which she honestly doesn't mind. Julie's asks Ayato who put the restraining spell on him and holds his face to make him look into her eyes, which is why he admits that it was his own sister whose power was imprisonment, the ability to forcibly bind anything. So basically, she has put a parental lock on Ayato's true power, which is why he can only use it for a limited time. He lasted for 5 minutes today, which is more than what could be said for most guys, but it's the longest he's used his power for before being restrained. He doesn't really know why his sister did that to him because she went MIA 5 years ago, but he understands that she must have had a solid reason. Now that he's practically in her lap like a lover, he offers to be her partner for the Phoenix Festa, even though he's nowhere close to the list of her dream man. Even though she appreciates his offer, she tries to make him understand that his normal power won't be enough for the festas, and using his savage power would drain him after every match, which she doesn't want to happen. But he's simping so hard for her right now that he doesn't care about any of that, making her face turn into a tomato with makeup as he calls her out for it for his amusement. As she finally caves in because she's in heat, they agree to be partners for the Phoenix Festa. On the other hand, Silas is hunted down by Claudia, who takes him out before handing him to Sedokan's secret force called the Shadow Stars, and one of them is none other than Yabuki, who knows that Claudia isn't making the matter public because she plans to keep the Alicant Academy in Sedyukan's debt. As they're both plotting and thinking they're so slick for successfully pairing up Ayato and Julie's, the Alicant Academy is spying on them like the FBI through a CCTV street camera, as they have gathered data on Sedyukan's fighting techniques to further train their super soldiers. Stepping into a meeting where the student council presidents from all the academies have shown up, Claudia is welcomed by Ernest, the student council president of Gerardworth Academy. Everyone is present except for the president of Queenvale, who is playing hooky due to being famous and on her European tour. This causes the angry-looking president of the Wolf to diss her, showing that he's mad at the world all the time, probably because his parents named him Dirk. Ernest calls him out for this hater behavior, but Dirk seems to be PMSing today and continues to disrespect the absent president, which causes Ernest to butt heads with him. Getting irritated at the boys' attempt to show how macho they are, Fan, who's the president of GA Long, gives them a final warning to shut up and sit down like good boys. Claudia is asked about the new alliance between Alicant and Seidoken, and she confirms that she'll send engineers to Alicant to develop new Orga Lux weapons, which is a fair deal because Seidoken will be mostly paying for the project in return for using Alicant's top-notch technology. Now that it's been established that Claudia is a bootylicious beauty with brains, Sakon, the president of Alicant Academy, proposes the use of artificial intelligence in Asterisk and its Festas. Later on, Ayato is rushing to class like me every morning after recording my morning routine, when he bumps into a new chick from school and their collision causes a ton of energy to be released, showing how powerful they both are. After checking up on her and apologizing to her, he offers her his hand to help her stand up while she keeps blushing hard as if he's offering her his virginity instead of his hand. As Ayato notices something being stuck in her hair and removes it in the most Rizzler way, she thanks him in a way that convinces me that this girl is totally whipped at this point. But their moment is interrupted by a boomer calling out for the girl whose name is Kieran, after which she runs off, leaving Ayato behind to suddenly remember that he was supposed to meet Julies, who must be literally burning with rage right now because of how much he's made her wait. When they rehearse for the Phoenix Festa, they do their own weird version of foreplay by attacking each other unexpectedly and getting excited when the other dodges or shows impressive moves. Even though Julies puts up a good fight, Ayato always manages to surpass her one way or another, and they realize that he can easily fight for 3 minutes without activating his seal. After their fight, they discuss top fighters in the Festas game, and Ayato mentions a girl named Ophelia, who's from the Wolf, and won 2 consecutive Lindworm Festas, which sends Julius into a quiet state, snapping back to her usual self within seconds. Julius points out that one thing in their favor is that Ayato is underrated so far because no one knows about his true potential yet. She suggests not showing his full power even while using the Servaresta so that he can have a psych moment with his opponents in the Festas, but he says that the sword doesn't accept him as his yielder when he's on mid mode. Nevertheless, she instructs him to keep his real power on the down low because there's a whole month left until the Phoenix Festa. Later on, they're joined by Lester and Saya, where Saya complains that Julies has been monopolizing Ayato by keeping him shut in a room with her after school, where she claims they hook up. As Julia shouts back at Saya for calling her a bop, Lester thanks Ayato for saving everyone that day as he recently got out of the hospital. As if the Seidoken training room wasn't a fish market already, Claudia also enters with 2 students from Alicant named Camila and Ernesta, who were the same ones responsible for the Silas conspiracy and the ones spying on Claudia through a street camera. They're here to sign the contract today, and Ernesta claims that she wanted to check out Ayato herself because she wants to be wrecked by him just like he wrecked her soldiers. While Julies and Saya both get protective over their favorite beefcake, Ernesta moves closer to Ayato to whisper a threat in his ear before she plants a kiss on his cheek, doing what none of the loser girls at Seidokan have managed to do yet. Making Julies and Saya jelly, Ernesta acts dumb while Camila apologizes for her thirsty behavior. She also notices Saya's weapon and calls it 6-7 because of its structural flaws, but Saya doesn't appreciate someone pissing on her daddy's signature weapon, which gets even worse when Camila openly hates on her dad as he's been cancelled by Alicant for his big yikes behavior. Now that Camila and Ernesta have given Saya the ick, she decides to participate in the Phoenix Festa as well to beat them there. She automatically assumes that Ayato would be her partner, but that's where Julie steps in because she can't have a pocket-sized baddie stealing her man. While the girls fight over Ayato like it's Archie's comics, Lester steps out of the training room and cringe. Later on, Ernesta admits that she needs more data on Ayato, which is why she's going to cause a scene again to see what he's capable of. Yabuki is catching up Ayato on how Camila and Ernesta belong to the most powerful group within Alicant when they hear Kieran getting bitch-slapped by her boomer uncle, which is why Ayato interferes, because he just can't mind his own business. Telling Ayato to back off, Kieran's uncle, aka Kuichiro, insists that he should stay out of this because it's a fam thing, but when he sees that Ayato is packing the Servaresta, he promises to never resort to violence with Kieran, but like always there's a catch, which is that he must win a duel against Kieran, who apparently doesn't know how to say no to her creepy uncle. She challenges him to a duel and he accepts because he doesn't favor DV like any sensible person. As the two of them fight in front of the whole school, Julies catches them and gets salty at Ayato for defying her instructions of avoiding duels. Yabuki's also there like a narc, getting intel on Ayato's real moves and informs Julies that Ayato's up against the Lighting Blade Speed, who ends up defeating Ayato because she eats men like him for breakfast. Once the duel is over, Ayato is on the verge of collapsing when Kieran apologizes and follows her uncle like a puppy. Julius, on the other hand, takes him away so that the others can't find out about his seal, while also having a mentee B because of him dueling Sedokan's rank 1 student. This rank 1 student is apparently a bottom though, because she lets his uncle mansplain on how to be the top student at Sedokan when he is not even a Genestella himself. Meanwhile, Julius turns out to be a girl's girl as she commends Ayato for trying to protect Kieran from her predator uncle. She's also low-key disappointed in him taking an L in this duel because she was rooting for him deep down. As Julius mentions that Kieran is literally 13, Ayato gets surprised because the last time he checked her out, she was giving major Kylie Jenner energy. Julius catches him up on how Claudia falls right under Kieran in rank, but unlike Kieran, who doesn't have an Orgalux weapon, Claudia is gifted by not only an Orgalux, but also the ability to see up to 10 seconds in future, meaning she literally has magical foresight like Doja Cat. Now that Ayato has blown their cover like a noob, Julius decides to change their strategy for the Phoenix Festa after getting him a new school emblem, because his old one got destroyed like his aura in his duel with Kieran. For that, he shows up at the resting space for student council members where Claudia is sunbathing by the pool like she's starring in an episode of The White Lotus. When she gives him the emblem, he wonders which one of her many curves she pulled this out of, while she sits down with him and brings Koichiru. He's apparently an employee of Sedokan's parent company, where he's an executive of talent scouting, which explains why he's such a massive turd. Not only does he extort his poor niece for a seat on the board of directors, but he's also super delulu, because you can only make it to the board after going through multiple psychological programs and getting your personal desires erased, which seems an impossible task for this selfish prick. Explaining why she's literally the Wikipedia on this subject, Claudia casually shares that her mother is an executive too before she jumps into the pool, probably so that Ayato won't be able to see her tears under all that pool water. Back at his dorm, Kieran pays him a visit to thank him for his kindness, when Ayato catches Yabuki and the other guys listening in on their conversations, so he takes her on a walk to get away from everyone's annoying prying eyes, where she admits that her dad was a very strict man, which is why she's walking with a guy like this for the first time. Virgin Kieran also gets excited because Ayato uses an ancient sword fighting style just like her and gives away the fact that her self-esteem is as low. She also shares that she obeys Kuishiro to save her father despite the fact that he hates the Genestella. Seeing how pathetic and lonely Kieran is, Ayato invites him to his training sessions with Julius, but she refuses because her uncle has ordered her to not interact with other page ones. Very conveniently, Ayato offers her one-on-one training sessions early in the morning, which she easily accepts, joining the I Have a Crush on Ayato fan club. Ayato has just dropped Kieran off at her dorm when Saya ambushes him by jumping on him from a tree like Batman and interrogating him on who his new side piece is. She also wants an answer on whether he'll be her partner for the Phoenix Festa, and he rejects her because Julius is thick and called dibs on him first, while Saya feels pressed for having the body of a toddler, which is nothing compared to Kieran, who's in the same grade as her. Ayato points out that she's also a daddy's princess like her. The next day, Julius corners Ayato in the cafeteria to confront him about his secret meetings with Kieran, but she accidentally yeets her hand into ordering a really spicy curry that can give a mukbanger a run for their money. While Ayato tells her what's up in the most nonchalant way, she pretends to eat the spicy curry like she was born Indian. But Ayato can see right through her, which is why he convinces her to trade dishes with him, creating a moment where they both have a possibility of mating over curry, except Ayato ends up screaming after taking the first bite. On the other hand, Camila wakes up Ernesta, who's been catching some Z's at their lab, informing her that the Tenorio guys she stirred up are already on the move. Together, they watch Ayato and Kieran on their morning run, oblivious to the fact that they're about to be attacked by the Tenorio guys sent by Ernesta. Because they're running in a thick fog this morning, Ayato jokes that they should hold hands to not get lost, but Kieran is so desperate that she takes it seriously and accidentally comes across as a loose goose. Once the fog clears out, they find barricades ahead of them and feel eyes on them, except their opponents aren't enemies this time because a bunch of dinosaur-like creatures surround them, as apparently they see Ayato and Kieran as their breakfast cereal. Before admitting these creatures are low-key cute, Kieran watches Ayato, who manages to cut off a limb only to learn that they regenerate like Deadpool, so she finally steps in like the girl boss she is and chops up a creature in tiny pieces like a sushi chef. This seems to work out for them, as she suspected that they had a core and she destroyed that, causing the rest of the knockoff Jurassic creatures to run away, giving Ernesta an opportunity to rub the loss of Tenorio guys in their face later. When Ayato compliments her keen eye, Kieran humbly mentions that she's usually good at detecting these things. Ayato picks up the piece from the creature's body and realizes that it's synthetic, which means this shady business is screaming Alicant's name all over it. Their Sherlock Holmes and Watson bit is interfered when the creatures return and do a surprise attack, causing Ayato to jump and dodge them, accidentally crossing the safety barricade. The ground beneath his feet collapses and he starts to fall into the abyss when Kieran grabs his hand and tries to pull him up. But she's clearly not built for this heavy-duty lifting, which is why the ground under her gives in too, and they both come falling down like Humpty Dumpty. Ernesta and Camila's reaction to this fall during their surveillance reveals that this was only the first part of Tenorio's plan, and that there's even more messed up stuff in store for the two most OP fighters at Seidukan. After falling right into some musty water that must be filled with E. coli, Ayato helps Kirin get out because she doesn't know how to swim. He comments on how huge the area is, but this Delulu queen thinks he's talking about her tiggle bitties instead. None of them get enough time to blush though, as a Loch Ness-type monster charges at them from within the water, giving the same energy as the Jurassic creatures they dealt with above ground. Activating Sir Veresta, Ayato gets into savage mode with another baddie on his arm this time. He has barely dodged the monster, which is still circling around them, when Kirin decides this to be the perfect time to throw a fit about how she can't tolerate someone else sacrificing themselves to save someone as useless as her. Ayato is kinder than that and offers her some comfort by rubbing her head. After giving her a girly pop pep talk, he gets her to land, and she points out that the monster's core is moving inside him instead of being in one spot. Coming up with an idea, he releases his power and expands Sir Veresta into growing twice its size, proving that he's a grower, not a shower. Just as he fillets the beast in half like I do with boneless chicken, his imprisonment spell comes on and he passes out like girls after standing in the sun for too long. Once he returns to consciousness, Ayato and Kirin remove their clothes to let them dry, facing away from each other, while Ayato shares how his own sister nerfed him. Kirin wonders why he'd go to the extent of fighting if it's so problematic for him, and he answers that he does it to help Julius. He pulls an Uno reverse on her and asks why she fights in this school, and she replies that she does it to save her father, who's currently detained as a criminal. She adds that 5 years ago someone broke into a shop Kirin and her father were in and took little Kirin as his hostage, which led to Daddy Kirin killing the man in self-defense. But he was sentenced to live the life of Orange is the New Black because he was a Genestella who are supposed to be more responsible with their powers. She regrets freezing in her spot that day like a wuss, as she could have stopped the perp without causing a bloodbath. Acting like a smarty pants, Ayato tries to make her understand that her manipulative uncle is cashing in on her daddy issues to further his own career, and she should choose her own path, with Ayato's support, of course. As if the whole interaction wasn't borderline creepy already, they both get awkward seeing each other in their underwear, and Kirin mentions that she enjoys him patting her head to comfort her because that's something her father used to do as well. Before I can pass out of cringe, rescue services thankfully show up there and bring them back to Seidukan. Kirin finally grows a spine now that she has a big boy backing her, and finally stops a punch her uncle is about to send to her face before she apologizes to him in advance and ditches his soppy old self to finally duel with someone of her own liking. We all know who that someone of her liking is, because this girl is one predictable chick. In Kirin's next duel with Ayato, Claudia has a whole stage set up for the show, while Ayato isn't using his Sir Veresta this time so that he can match her speed. Lester, Julius, Seiya, and Yabuki are also watching the fight because none of them have enough main character energy. Seiya spills the tea that Ayato has taken on a much more formidable opponent before, who's none other than his own sister Haruka. Turns out that Ayato has really strategized this time, as he's borrowed Orgaluxes from both Lester and Yabuki, which he uses to make the fight tricky for Kirin, eventually sumo slamming her on his way to victory. After the fight, Kirin requests to join Ayato's training sessions with Julius now that she's no longer getting cock-blocked by Koichiru. As if on cue, Koichiru shows up to take her away now that she's taken an L, but Ayato steps in to defend her. When Koichiro stoops as low as threatening to tell everyone about Kirin's daddy issues, Claudia name-drops her mom like a blonde nepo baby, which is enough to shut him up. As Ayato does his head rub thing with Kirin yet again, they finally come on a first-name basis, which Seiya observes silently. On the other hand, Ernesta has not only weakened the Tenorio faction of Alakan due to their failure, but also gathered enough dirt on Ayato to take him down in the Phoenix Festa. Meanwhile, Seiya offers Kirin to be her tag partner in the Phoenix Festa because they're both fighting for their fathers. With Seiya and Kirin reenacting their Lara Croft fantasies during their training sessions where they take down opponents effortlessly, Ayato and Julius have begun watching as a force to be reckoned with. Ayato is also the rank 1 student at Seidukan now, which is why he keeps getting fangirls who want his autograph and everything else he has to offer as a man. As they discuss Ayato's newfound clout, he learns that students even have online auctions going on about the page 1's performances. Kirin and Seiya shoot their shot by telling Ayato that they're also rooting for him like half the girls in this school, but Julius points out if they'll still be so supportive in case they come face to face in the Phoenix Festa. All feelings aside, the girls plan to bring their A game, which is why Ayato suggests that they should train to be in sync since they're both so powerful individually. This is why Seiya announces that they won't come to the upcoming training session and will spend the day bonding. But Seiya actually has the personality of Wednesday Addams, so she doesn't really know how to bond with someone, and Kirin is even worse because she's been living under a rock her whole life. Seiya mentions that she needs a shopping partner to recreate her Pretty Woman moment because she has the directional skills of a drunk college girl. So Kirin joins her on her trip to the city to buy a present for her father, whose birthday birthday is coming soon, but this man apparently has no personality, which is why they can't find any interesting gift for him. Sitting down, they discuss how Saya's the daughter of a mad scientist, which is why all her luxes are handmade by him, as he gives her a new gun on every birthday. This gives Saya an idea, and she shows Kieran the location of a shop outside the business district that's in a super gritty, shady area. They go to the pawn shop for luxes, where Saya gets a gun with a super rare generator that's similar to her dad's technology, proving that she's all about that thrifting lifestyle. Later on, Saya gives Kieran a swimming lesson so that she can impress Ayato by being an independent woman the next time they end up wet and soaked. Saya gets out of the pool to get some drinks while Kieran practices on her own and ends up accidentally flipping over another girl's floaty. The blonde bimbo is about to throw hands and challenge Kieran to a duel when she recognizes her as the Lightning Blade Speed and continues to bully her anyway. The Karen Barbie is still yapping when Saya takes her down with a headshot, calling her out for being a meanie. The blonde girl named Violet, who's rank 35 at Queenvale, challenges Saya to a duel which ends within seconds as Saya bombards Violet with her mega gun. Afterwards, Saya confronts Kieran for being a doormat and letting people walk all over her, and Kieran responds that her default settings are on victim mode now because of Koichiru. In her own so mindful, so demure way, Saya hypes Kieran to take more pride in her strengths, and they come on first-name basis too. In the next training session, they're so in sync, like two besties cycles, that even Ayato and Julie admit that they'd have to step up their game. When the matchups for the Phoenix come out, Claudia and Yabuki notice that Ayato's team is on Block C, while Kieran's is on Block L. But either way, they'll both have to steer clear of Irene, a cutthroat vixen from LeWolf whose face card and track record are both unbeatable. Dirk and his girl Corona go into one of the discipline rooms at LeWolf that are basically torture cells for students gone rogue. Chained up inside is Irene, clad in a gothic outfit looking like the naughty dream of every gamer. Dirk orders her to crush Ayato in the Phoenix Festa, after which it's up to her to stay in the tournament or leave as long as she defeats Ayato, because his serve Aresta would cause problems for them later. She understands the assignment and asks about her sister, who Dirk has been using to blackmail this baddie into being an obedient good girl. Once she starts playing by his rules, he sets her free and brings her some snacks to get her going. Sometime later, the opening ceremony for the Phoenix Festa begins, and the super young and dashing chairman of the Phoenix Festa committee starts to address the students, while Julius catches up Ayato on how he's a Seidukan alumnus and wished to join the management committee after winning the Phoenix. As they whisper about how crafty this man is, he gives Ayato a bombastic side-eye while he announces that from now onwards, all fighters can use autonomous weapons, which favors Alicant, but no one can really do anything about it. Since they have some time to kill before their first match, Ayato and Julius decide to get some lunch. Ayato spots Lester and Randy and invites them too, but they're in a super competitive spirit right now, and turn him down like I do with every man who's not Zayn Malik. Saya finally finds Ayato and gives him a surprise hug, while Kieran hands him the homemade lunch they packed for him like dutiful housewives. When Julius criticizes Saya's rice balls for being too large to eat, Saya retaliates that, in her opinion, size does matter, which gets Julius's panties in a bunch even more. While Ayato is busy giving Kieran and Saya some head pats for the lunch they made him, Julius takes them to their waiting room where Saya proves to be a big back as she eats 4 of those gigantic rice balls. They turn on the live stream for the Festa, which will go on for 2 weeks, starting with a preliminary round which will bring down the 256 teams to top 32. Then, another raffle will decide the matchups for the finals, where a team will lose when both members' school badges are destroyed, passed out, surrendered, or have been judged to lose, and the winning team will get points for their school's official records. Ayato and Julius's first match is against Guardworth, where Julius gives the crowd a royal wave, making all of them go wild like Sweet Fights at an Eras Tour concert. She lets Ayato take the lead, and he single-handedly wins the battle before the opponents can even tell what's up. Julius wants to keep up the mystery about Ayato's seal and their teamwork patterns, which is why she advises him to be as evasive as possible during their victor's interview. Yabuki has also come sniffing around to get the deets on Alicant's strategy in light of the new announcement, but they shut him out like my parents did with me after I stole all their money for a trip to Disneyland. Before Alicant's match, Ernesta gets cocky and wants to give the impression of being fair, which is why she publicly releases info on her autonomous combat puppets Artie and Rimsey. Much to Camilla's dismay, Artie turns out to be just as dramatic as his master, as he gives his opposing LeWolf fighters a 1-minute head start to beat him. Rimsey seems to be much more sensible like Camilla, but puts up with Artie's theatrics to maintain her master's dignity, and yet they stand unscathed during the whole 1 minute where the LeWolf students throw every attack at them. As soon as the grace period ends, Artie wins the match in one blow, proving that he's nothing less than Cyborg from Justice League. In the wake of Alicant's victory, Saya's father calls her to guide her about how she can penetrate Artie's light shield if a need for that arises, and sends her to customs to receive a new gun he sent for her. While Ayato and Julius continue practicing for their next match, Artie flexes his win in front of Ernesta only to get a kick from Rimsey for being an arrogant brat. This makes Artie question why he's programmed to be helpless in front of Rimsey when their powers are equal, to which Ernesta responds that she's a girl's girl and is big on girl power, which is why she's designed Artie in a way that he can never win against Rimsey. But what this pseudo-feminist intentionally leaves out is that she's made Rimsey to be Artie's limiter. Ayato and Julius are on their way back from a practice session when they see Irene beating up random men on the street just because she can. When she spots Ayato in the crowd, she is about to pick a fight with Julius, but her goody two-shoes sister named Priscilla shows up there to discipline her. She apologizes on Irene's behalf because she's a pacifist and takes her sister away. Julius later starts Priscilla on her database only to learn that she's unranked and basically a nobody, which is why the only info available about her is that she's Irene's tag partner. Julius admits that she intentionally provoked Irene to get clues on why she was targeting Ayato, or what sinister scheme LeWolf could be cooking up. As Seiya and Kieran's match starts, Seiya is slightly upset as everyone mistakes her for a minor due to her being built like a fridge, and also because she doesn't see Ayato in the audience yet. Kieran assures her that he's on his way and shifts her attention to their competitors who look quite competent. As their match begins, Kieran takes down her opponent while Seiya keeps fighting hers until she decides it's enough and finishes him with a gun blast brighter than my future. After their fight, as they shower together and fight with no clothes on because Seiya can't keep her hands to herself, they get a notification that Ayato and Julius are waiting outside, which is why Kieran asks to have a moment, but Seiya seems to be on freaky mode and lets them in to reveal herself and Kieran in their birthday suits. In Ayato and Julius's next match, they face a duo from Queenvale called Non-Sugar. Despite being fan favorites, Non-Sugar are single-handedly turned into s'mores by Julius's flame attacks. Now that they're done for the day, Ayato suggests going to Seiya and Kieran's venue to cheer them for their next match, but Julius points out that the venue is too far for them to make it in time. Apparently, she wants him all to herself, which is why she shows him the sandwiches she packed for them so that they could have lunch together. At this rate, Ayato's going to have all 3 meals served by his fangirls. Looks like Julius went through all this trouble because she's also fining for that sweet head rub of his, and once he finally gives it to her, she feels like all's right with the world again. They watch Lester and Randy's fight against Irene and Priscilla, where Lester keeps moving to avoid Irene's gravity attack because he knows that her Orga Lux drains her the longer she wields it. But Irene is far too familiar with men hating on her for no reason, which is why she swiftly immobilizes Randy. After that, she kicks Lester in his chiseled manly face, but he stands his ground and puts up a good fight. Seeing that she needs it to win, Irene gets Priscilla's consent before biting into her neck and sucking out her blood like she's from the Cullen family in Twilight. Once Irene gets her human Kool-Aid, Priscilla magically regenerates her lost blood, which turns out to be her secret power. Disgusted by the whole Nosferatu moment, Lester braces himself while she plants his feet to the ground with her gravity scythe. He's practically on his knees when he surrenders to keep whatever dignity he has left, and Ayato and Julius tensely watch, feeling bad that this man has to keep taking one L after another. Claudia congratulates Ayato for making it into the finals, expressing that she has a lot riding on him in all the ways he can imagine as she's about to draw his matchups. Complaining about how Julia's and the others have been draining him lately, she almost cuddles with him, telling him how much she misses him. Like always, some other girl interrupts, and this time it's Kieran calling Ayato to report that she misplaced Seiya somewhere in the business district and needs his help to find her. Just to get him concerned about her, Claudia acts mad for him not spending more time with her, but then laughs it off because she isn't petty like that and has tons of huzz. She makes him promise that he'll make it up to her later, and Ayato agrees, not knowing how freaky she can get when she wants to. Ayato is searching the streets for Seiya when he runs into Priscilla, who's being chased by a group of Neanderthal the Wolf students. Ayato manages to recuse her. She tells him that they were probably after her because of the commotion Irene caused at the casino, but she quickly realizes that she's being a pick-me by dissing her own sister in front of a random guy, which is why also defends Irene by saying she's deep down a softie who must be on her way to save Priscilla right now. As if on cue, Irene shows up, foaming at the mouth at the sight of Ayato because she mistakes him for harming Priscilla. Even though Priscilla tries to set the record straight, Irene can't imagine an enemy being nice for no reason, which is why she's about to tell Priscilla to hold her hoops. But pushover, Priscilla finally speaks up and tames Irene to ensure she won't fight Ayato, giving him time to call Seiya and realize that Kieran has found her already. To settle the score with Ayato for saving Priscilla, Irene shares the latest matchups with him, after which she goes to Dirk and calls him out for not holding up his end of the bargain and ensuring Priscilla's safety. Turns out no one really cares about Priscilla's safety just because she's a regenerative and can easily grow back the organs she loses, which gets Irene all hormonal and she tries to attack Dirk. He reminds her that if anything happens to him, there will be no one around to protect Priscilla, which is why Irene decides to return Ayato's favor on her own so that they can fight fair and square later on. Once she's gone, Dirk makes Corona do a reading which shows absolute results that Irene and Priscilla will win, giving him enough confidence to contact someone named the Seventh Golden Eye, while Corona arranges his meeting with a vice chairman. Ayato brings up how he's been invited to dinner by Irene and Priscilla as a way of showing gratitude, which makes Julius clap back at him. She reminds him that he's going to feast with their opponents for their next match. Seeing that Ayato will continue to sim for every woman he meets, Julius invites herself to dinner, which is at the sisters' fancy apartment. Priscilla plays hostess for the evening while Irene sits angrily at the table. While they enjoy Priscilla's bussin' food, Irene mentions how she uses them to earn money for survival rather than gambling there for fun. When Priscilla leaves to check up on the oven, Irene drops the lore on how she loaned a huge sum of money from Dirk years ago, which she pays back by obeying all his orders. Except she can't participate in festas on her one will or use their prize money to pay off her debt, basically making her a lifelong slave. To return the favor, she openly tells them that she's only doing the festa to destroy Ayato on Dirk's command because he doesn't want the serveresta coming in his way like it did when a female student was wielding it years ago. This rings so many bells in Ayato's head that he feels like it's Christmas already, but he doesn't say anything in front of the girls because he gotta keep up his chill guy act. Seeing Irene's dynamics with Priscilla makes him miss Haruka even more before he says bye to Priscilla, who trauma dumps on Ayato, and Julius about how Irene only fights for her sake and how she sometimes feels scared when Irene wields the gravy scythe and it seems like the weapon is controlling her, instead of the other way around. On their way home, Julius instructs Ayato not to go soft on the sisters a day before their fight just because he's listened to their sob story before heading to her room. Ayato, on the other hand, gives Claudia a late-night booty call and goes to her room because he needs a favor from her. When he gets there, she seems to be in some trance-like state. She attacks him out of nowhere and is about to impale him with her twin swords when he touches her and calls out her name, waking her up and bringing her back to her senses. She apologizes to him and requests him to join the Griffin Festa as part of her team next year, and he agrees on the condition that Julius can also tag along. Now that they're teammates, she finally gives him the juicy goss on how every time she sleeps, she dreams the exact moment of her eventual death thanks to her weapon. The messed up part is that every dream involves a different scenario of her life subscription ending, which is why no one was able to withstand wielding this weapon before her. Now that she's oversharing in her vulnerability and clearly has the word vomit, Ayato tries to find out what her ultimate wish is. But she's smarter than that and keeps up her mystery. Playing Curious Cat today, Ayato also picks her brain on how each of the Orgaluxes have personalities of their own, with Serveresta being noble yet somewhat rebellious. Claudia's Pandora has the darkest personality to match her own black heart, and Grabby Scythe is possibly dangerous as it has not only influenced Irene's personality, but also turned her into a literal vampire to fulfill its own bloodthirst. Now that he has what he came here for, Ayato takes his leave like a typical 21st century man, despite her seductive invitation to spend the time, which low-key slaps. As Ayato heads back to his room, Julius and Claudia both manifest his victory while Priscilla gets new worry lines on her face because Irene hasn't returned home yet. Meanwhile, Irene is taking a Kardashian-inspired vampire facial after ending all the LeWolf guys who could lay a hand on her baby sis. Irene had to be this way since their hometown was plagued by war during their childhood. One day, Priscilla ended up crushed under some debris and Irene was sure that her younger sister is a goner, but that's when Priscilla's regenerative abilities were discovered and the sisters became a target due to their powers. With no place to call home, Irene resorted to taking a favor from douchebag Dirk, who gave her the Grabby Scythe. As soon as Irene touched it, the Orgalux activated because it had found the perfect host to leech off of. Recreating the iconic Lucifer Morningstar line of asking Irene what she truly desired, Dirk trapped her for life and she let it happen because the Grabby Scythe gave her personality the biggest glow down of the century. Fast forward to the present, it's the day of their match against Ayato and Julius, and, like always, Irene tells Priscilla to leave the catfight to her while she can just sit still, look pretty. But Irene knows already that today's fight isn't going to be as butta as their previous matches, which is why Irene fuels the scythe by sucking blood out of Priscilla's neck. Understanding that anxiety lives rent-free in Priscilla's head, Irene gives her a hug and assures her that this pathetic era of their life will soon be over. On the other hand, Ayato is contemplating the meaning of life when Julius gives him the heads up that their match is about to start. Because Ayato is the CEO of being unpredictable, he has come up with a new idea and whispers it in Julius's ears because he knows I'm onto him. As they're walking to the arena, Julie reminds him that she has to win at any cost, so she has no problem using his idea to win because they're partners after all. They prepare to face the Grabby Scythe with a friendly fist bump. Once the match starts, Ayato launches his savage force, fully opening up his Serveresta, while Julius starts with throwing flames at Irene. She dodges them easily and is soon met with Ayato, who's moved closer to her in the meantime, and their Orgaluxes clash. Even though Ayato and Julius keep attacking her together, Arnie stands her ground and tries to immobilize Ayato. Irene builds a static defense shield around herself and Priscilla and starts to feed to refuel while Ayato notices that he has around 2 minutes left until his imprisonment kicks in. Julie signals him that she's ready for his idea and that now's the time to act. So while she distracts Irene with her flame attacks, Ayato locks in and targets the Gravity Scythe with his Serve Arresta, causing a huge energy surge that throws both of them several feet away. With his idea turning out to be a bust, Julie points out that they're running out of time and delivers her most powerful attack that literally digs a crater into the arena. But as the smoke subsides, it appears that the scythe somehow guarded Irene, much to Priscilla's relief. She runs to Irene to check up on her while Ayato gets nerfed by his imprisonment. In a true what the heliante moment, Irene loses all control to the scythe, immobilizing everyone in the ring including Priscilla, who's on her knees and begging like that Manskin song. Playing hero as always, Ayato slowly takes a few steps towards Irene using all his might, while screaming at her to regain control and hold on to what really matters to her. This brings back Irene, but only for a few seconds, during which she drops Priscilla and starts emitting major energy while levitating in the air like some possessed girl from The Conjuring. At that moment, Serve Arresta decides to give Ayato the nickname of Jet 2 Holiday because nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday, which Serve Arresta ensures by showing him the memories of when Haruka was wielding the weapon and was in a similar situation like this. Getting a major power boost from Serve Arresta, Ayato puts his all in and breaks the Gravity Scythe's core so that it won't be such a parasite to Irene from now on. Now that her Orga Lux is destroyed, Irene also passes out, marking Ayato and Julius as the winners of this match. Now that he's fully drained, Ayato also passes out on live TV while Dirk watches, recognizing him as Haruka's brother while he contemplates taking Ernesta's help to avoid Jie Long's involvement in his sinister scheme. At this point, Ayato has all eyes on him, especially those of the presidents of all the academies, who seem to have cracked his weak spot now. Priscilla wakes up in a hospital because Irene had drained too much of her blood like a typical greedy sibling, and feels super relieved when she finds out that not only Ayato broke the scythe, but that Dirk also didn't punish them for it. Finally growing a pair, Priscilla decides to not be a liability anymore and fight alongside Irene so that they can repay their debt as soon as possible. Now that Ayato is super fragile like my heart, Julius feels concerned about him, but he turns this worry into butterflies by smooth talking her. He decides to fight off his seal once and for all, and she grabs his face, making him promise that he'll let her be there for him because they're partners after all. Our girl Julie is finally about to score a kiss when her bad karma catches up to her and the others walk in to check up on Ayato and ruin the moment. As Ayato gets to feel their cushions one after the other, they all fight over who gets to nurse him back to health, while Yabuki stands outside wondering how this tournament will end and why life is so unfair.